Want cherries but don't want to have to buy a cherry tree, a cherry bush will work just fine. We'll show you how to put this one in the ground. Sponsored by... Stop before you dig. Call Digger's Hotline first. Call 3 business days before you dig. It's the law. It's completely free and it's for your safety. Know what's below before you dig. It's your responsibility. Call Digger's Hotline or visit them at diggershotline.com. So what we have here is a Romeo Bush dwarf cherry bush that's rated for zone 2 or higher, as low as zone 2. We're in zone 5, so this will work just fine. Now these are bred in Saskatchewan, Canada, so it works very well. Now at maturity, this will get 6 foot across by 6 foot high. Now you can control this, and it is considered an ornamental or edible cherry bush. It will produce at max or at its peak about 30 pounds of cherries a year. Now, it requires at least 6 hours of sun per day. Full sun is most recommended. And the blossoms of the cherries will be a pinkish white color, and this obviously a dark green foliage. Now this plant here we got at our local garden center, Blue Mills Landscape and Garden Center here in Milwaukee, their primary sponsor on our radio show, the official garden center. You can see just this year, or the last couple of weeks here, how much additional growth from the old and then the new growth that is already produced. This will produce some blossoms and some cherries this year, but your big production for this particular plant will come next year and for many years to come. So you want this to be planted at the same depth as which is in the container. It's not a graft or anything, it's a straight plant. And again, at least 6 hours of sunlight. We've got it beside our raised bed here and beside the porch. So at maximum, this won't interfere with either one of them, and it will provide us a lot of cherries. Other information, it rootstock its own rootstock, so that's important. That's nice to know that it wasn't a graft. And again, 6 foot by 6 foot, natural dwarf variety. So first thing we need to do here is dig a hole that's about 2 times as big as its container. And we won't add any compost to that. We'll use native soil. And I'll explain why that is so important when we get to that stage. All right, we've also got a hold of Digger's Hotline. They've marked the area. We've had it marked several years ago, so we know where things are at, and that's important to mark that so you don't hit a gas line, electrical line, underground utility. So that's important as well. So I'm going to get this dug out, and then we'll get this set in the ground in the direction we want it to show towards the street. Okay, so I got the hole dug about 1.5 times, 2 times larger than the container, and I've got it at soil level. Now one way, it may be a little deeper, but one way you can take your shovel and figure out about what grade is versus where it's sitting in the pot. So we're a little deeper than what I want, so I'm going to backfill just slightly, and then we'll get the container, get the plant out of the container. I'm using a cultivator here. I'm just going to pull some soil. Another thing, you can put a tarp down, a bag down, just so you're not dropping a lot of soil in the grass and you're not being able to utilize it. So with also, since I've got this, I'm going to rough up the edges so it's not so smooth, and that just will allow when these roots start reaching out, they will feel some, it won't be like inside of a pot. There'll be some texture there for them to get a hold of. Okay, let's see where we're at now. All right, we'll be right where we need to be because the pot is a little sunk down. Okay, so first thing I want to do before I take it out of the pot, do want to add some slow release fertilizer here in the bottom of the hole. This is not the greatest native soil, but I've seen far, far worse. So we get that worked in. Again, scratch these edges a little bit more. Okay. Now with getting a plant out of a container, really depends on how root bound that plant is. One thing you can do is roll it on its side, push it. You don't want to just yank the plant out. You want to allow it to be loosened up. Well, this one here is loose already, and you can see here it's not terribly root bound. I mean, this is about as good as you're going to get a container a plant in a container. So we do want to loosen these up. You can see it just gently loosen them up, and what that will allow that plant to do, instead of continually grow in the circular situation that it's in, it will feel that things are loosened up and it will start exploring with the roots. So we're going to do that all the way around. Not sure what that stick is, but I'm going to leave it in there simply because it's the way it is. There's some bark in the actual medium. Okay, yeah. So this was probably a root of another plant. Well, what I'm going to do, I'm going to loosen that up. And this will just really help the plant take off. Okay. Next thing we want to do is we want to find the best face towards the plant. If you don't care, if it's just in a corner somewhere and you don't care, just throw it in the ground. But we do have the street that way, so I do want the nicest looking portion towards the street. And another thing, leave your tag on so you know information, or you can take this off and put it in a file somewhere. We're just going to leave it on. It's not going to hurt anything. So now we want to find that is right on grade level there. So that's good. Now the reason why I don't want to backfill this with all compost is because the plant won't explore. The compost has a lot of nutrients in it, and it's exactly what the plant that your bush is needing or your tree is needing. And what happens is the roots will find and know that they'll figure out that that's good and rich compost, and they'll just continue to grow around and around. They won't explore into the native soil. Then you have a bush that has a very weak root system because it's all right here. It's not out here, whether it's a bush or a tree. That's why it's not recommended, and I don't encourage you to backfill with 100% compost. Now, if you have really poor soil, 50-50 mix would be perfectly fine. But we're just going to use the native soil that we have here and not get the grass or get minimal amount of grass in here. And then we'll backfill this, and then we'll be just about done. Okay, so I've got it backfilled with the native soil, and the reason why I didn't incorporate the roots and the grass and all of that together was two reasons. One, if you incorporate all that in there, there's a lot of additional air pockets that doesn't allow the roots will air prune under the soil. And two, as that material breaks down, it will actually rob the soil of nitrogen and other nutrients that will take away from the actual bush itself or tree or whatever you're planting. So that's the reason why. And I've made kind of a valley here, or a little pond. So when we water, a lot of the water will catch here. Even though the soil is fairly moist, I still want to water it in to prevent or reduce the amount of shock in which this plant might go through. Before I do that, I'm going to add more fertilizer to the top, and then I'm going to top dress it with some certified leaf compost, and that will it will hold a lot of the moisture in. In addition, it will cover the the granular fertilizer, and as we water and it rains, this nutrients will permeate into the soil and help feed everything and help have more of a balanced, healthier plant. So we don't need a whole lot here. I just want to cover it, an inch will be fine. Kind of adds as a mulch. And then I'll reform my well. Now again, you don't want to bury the stem deeper than what it was in the container because it can cause problems, it can cause rot. And I think that looks pretty good. Now we want to water it in. And that's as easy as it is to plant, in this particular situation, a bush cherry plant. This would go the same for a tree or any other type of large potted plant. Now again, when I'm watering this, I'm letting it go down. I'm not just flooding it and letting it flush over. I'm letting it work down, and I'll probably go about 5 gallons, and that will be it. So it's that easy to plant a tree or a bush that will produce fruit for you for many years to come.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.